Hi there. I'm Amity Okamiri, and I live in Sacramento, California. So, in my project, I found that Sacramento, as the capital of California, has a lot of resources available to young adults and adults with disabilities and special needs. Um, the resources that I looked into involved transportation, they involved counseling services, regional centers that work with adults who leave special education, and also with children who are still and families who are still in the education system, and also a recreational sports organization that arranges baseball and soccer and bowling leagues for people with disabilities of all ages. So those were all really cool. I kind of wanted to find some resources that covered a spectrum of needs and things that families or young adults may need in transitioning. Um, Something that was really interesting to me when I was looking into businesses that specifically hire people with disabilities, I found that a town that's actually a pretty small town that's about an hour away has a business called Forever Glass. And basically, it is created with the intent of hiring adults with autism, which is super, super interesting. And it was created by a mother of a young man with autism, and they create glass vases and bowls, and their employees are involved in the distribution, in stocking, in they have a storefront, and then they also ship these pieces across the country. So their employees help with that. I thought that was really interesting. I did not find anything like that is local in Sacramento. So I it seems like those type of very specialized businesses are not you're not necessarily going to find those everywhere. And it actually surprised me that it was in a place like it's called Placerville, in a pretty small town up in the mountains, and not down here in Sacramento in the city. So that was just an interesting reflection. I think I do think that reflects basically just a lot of times the people who start those businesses are people who have direct experience and often family members who are in the special needs community. And it doesn't really matter where you live if you have an idea and you have the abilities, the entrepreneurial sense to make that happen. That can be made to happen even in a really small place, especially now with the internet and the ability to ship these things across the country. So, in reflecting on my experience, I found that there are many businesses that are willing, in theory, to work with people with disabilities and to employ people with disabilities, but there are fewer that actually know what they're doing. And a lot of times, the way that these partnerships are successful is when um, an outside organization partners with an already existing business. So in my community, there's an organization called Pride Industries, and they partner with a very wide variety of businesses and organizations in the Sacramento area, and they are able to provide the resources and the accommodations that adults with disabilities need to be successful in those employment places. So when I was looking into more private corporations and businesses, I found that it was super varied in what you would actually find to support people with disabilities in working there. In my observations, I focused actually in job opportunities within my school district. So I work in Elk Grove Unified School District. It is the fifth largest school district in California, so it's very large. And because of that, it actually has a lot of career opportunity within the district. So I looked specifically at a site that has employed people with disabilities in the custodial staff. So that's actually the campus I work in. It's called Valley High School. They have employed young adults that have actually graduated from Elk Grove schools in their custodial work. And then I also looked at a cafeteria that had an opening in the cafeteria staff. And that is another area in nutrition and food services that has been a place where there have been successful placements of people with disabilities. Um, what I like about that is that Elk Grove School District, just because of what it does and the reality about how how large we are and what a large special education program we have, there's just a lot more know-how and support for adults that would be employed, and also support for the people around them in learning how to provide appropriate accommodations and help for those people. There's also just better infrastructure as far as like HR. And so one of the things we know is that our special needs community is more vulnerable in the workplace to abuse and to um, to abuse. And so one of the things that when I think of my students who are 18 to 22, I feel more comfortable with them working in the school district simply because I know there are more protections because of the reality of how big we are and what a PR disaster it would be if something bad were to happen to them. I just know that there's going to be more accountability to their managers, to their supervisors, to their sites. And so I really like that about them being employed within our school district. One of the things that stood out to me in researching these and also just in thinking about the reality of a lot of these jobs. So in my 15 job sites, there were a lot of jobs that required social skills. And they don't necessarily require the employee to be exceptionally high intellectually, but they do require potentially a cashier. If once someone learns the procedures, they're probably going to be okay, but they do need to have social skills because they're working with people all day long. And so that made me think about my students with autism who are actually higher intellectually than some of my other students, but who really struggle with social skills and communication. And it made me realize how, in some ways, even though they have higher intellectual abilities, are actually more limited than a student who has an intellectual disability but is charismatic, is able to connect with people around them, is able to build those relationships and get the buy-in of coworkers and supervisors. I have one student with Down syndrome who is just a joy. Like, people love to be around her and they love to give her chances and they love to help her out. And she is just going to have more opportunities, even though she is lower intellectually than a student with some of my students with autism would be. So that's just an observation I had. And yeah, overall, I was encouraged at the resources available, but I really do, it really did strike me how far we have to go still in educating our community and helping them build their infrastructure so that our students can be successful once they transition into those jobs. All right, thanks. Have a good day.